Well, hello and welcome. It is time once again to try to fix something, and today on the workbench we have, surprise, surprise, another dead PS5. Now this one's supposed to be completely dead, unless the seller has lied to me, and that never happens. So, let's just see. I think I've got everything connected. What does she do? Eject? Oh, I think I may have been lied to. My faith in humanity has been really questioned here. Okay, beep. And no light. Beep, no light. Okay, that sounds familiar. Is that a dead HDMI encoder? Not sure. But that is not what I would call a no power. So you just wonder sometimes, do the sellers know they're lying to you, or do they just say, well, do they consider, well, it won't turn on, so that's no power? You don't know. So anyway, let's get some covers off this thing and see why it's a beep and no lights and no power. All right, the side cover is off, and I do see the vast majority of screws. Security tape is missing, but yeah, we have screws. That's a plus. Well, I did notice as I was taking it apart, I was missing at least 2 screws on the outer covers, and that one, right here that connects to the Blu-ray drive was missing, and the Wi-Fi antennas are disconnected. This one up here is. So yeah, somebody's been pretty deep into this. Yeah, that's ripped. So who knows what we're going to find on this board. All right, well, we've got this main board out almost. Kind of hard to get it out with one hand. Get these prongs unseated. So we have an EDM10 board. Doesn't look too bad. Uh-oh. A note. Ancient writings. What does that say? Were they trying to say blod? I can't tell. Oh, or is it? No, it's not beep, is it? I don't know what that says. But somebody's been way in here. And if I'm not mistaken, that NOR flash chip right there below the south bridge has been off. It looks a little bit askew. So, and I see a thing of solder right there below it too. Let me set this down so I can look. Yeah, solder. Not good. And it looks like flux. Yeah, somebody's changed the south bridge. What have they done to you? Okay. Let's get this thing on the operating room table quickly. All right, we are inside the workbench. Let's take a look at this under the microscope and let's see if we can figure out what kind of work has been done to this circuit board, because it has definitely had some work. And I was just looking at the eBay listing where I got it from, and it is a repair shop. I did not realize that. I probably would not have bought it if I'd known. Anyway, as you can see here, the NOR flash has been removed and probably flashed. So we don't know if it's the original contents are on there or not. Probably not. The south bridge looks like it has either been changed out or reflowed. Looking at the flux around it. I mean, there's flux on that crystal. Looks like they were focused in that area. The is that the dialogue chip there, DA9065? Doesn't look like it's been molested in any way yet. And it does not look, let's go over and look around the HDMI encoder I see. This does not look like it's been touched. And this, well, from my experience, it usually is a cause of that beep and no lights, but it could be other things. But it doesn't look like they messed with that at all. So where to begin? Well, we might want to look at some diode readings around this HDMI encoder. Perhaps. Like on these capacitors here, on these supply rails, 0.41, 0.28. That doesn't sound too far out of line. That's probably right. Okay. Let's go back over around this DA 9065 and 0.38. Just kind of looking for any shorts around here. Don't know if it's going to be that easy. So far, nothing. That's ground right there. Oops, sorry. And that's a fuse. Fuse is good. So, I'll tell you what we should do. Let me get set up so we can look at the current draw on this. See how much current it's drawing on power up. Alright, so I've got my bench supply connected. Polarity looks proper. I'm set for 12 volts, 400 milliamps. And I've got the scope running so I can look at the current there. Let's just see what she does. If I turn it, enable. 220 milliamps. And back down. Try that again. Yeah, 222, holding, dropping back down. Okay, and look at the waveform. Turn it on, a little spike, current goes up. So that looks familiar, like an SSD problem. That just what that sounds like. It sounds like it's trying to access its storage, and because a lot of its initial, BIOS, you might say, is on there, is on the storage. There's a small amount on the flash memory I see down here, but I think the majority of it's here. And that low of current draw, that's what that looks like. Alright, let's quickly take a look. If we're thinking SSD, let's look at the supply voltage of this SSD controller, which is this little IC right over here. And I'm going to get on one of these. This thing puts out 4 different voltages. Let's just see, I'm going to apply power. These voltages are there when it's running. And initially when you apply power, they're there, but they're not there in standby. So what I'm going to be doing is turning the 12 volts on and off onto the board, which is still connected. And get on one of these test points. And I'll turn on power, 1.2 volts, and that should go away. Well, yeah. So 1.2 is good. What's this one over here? 0.8 or so, 2.5. Turn that off. So this is just 0.8, 0.8, and I think this one over here is another 1.2. So, as suspected, our supply rails were just fine. So, what I'm wondering about, do we have a failed SSD controller? Let me see. Let's take a look around that SSD controller just for the heck of it. There are some test pads around the side of it here that I want to check for diode readings. Okay. Yep. Ooh. Short on the very last one. Interesting. Never seen one shorted like that. And it looks like it's these are all test points on differential data lines. Like this set here is going to the APU. And there's a set here, it looks like going down to the expansion slot, and there's probably some going to the south bridge, because these are all things that access it. But how do we get a short there? You know, unless it's just plain failed in here in this chip, or liquid metal has gotten under there, or a problem where it goes. Like the trace that I have a short on is here, and that goes down to here, and there are some type of protection devices across it there. I suppose that could cause the problem. But basically, I mean, those lines should be pretty much open, because unless there's something in that expansion slot. Need to take a look up in that slot to make sure there's nothing up in there. But the most likely thing is failed SSD controller, which I think I have one on hand. A good one, I hope. But yeah, that's not normal. That's on that very last test point. From my point of view, anyway. All right, we're taking a quick look at this storage expansion port here. Just trying to see if I can see anything obvious up in the port. It's kind of hard to get an angle on it because of where it is on the board. It's not at the outer edge, so. But no, I don't see anything that looks obviously shorted. There's no solder or liquid metal, looks like. Okay, just wanted to check. All right, well, after looking up inside that connector and not really seeing anything, I've tried looking up under the edge of the chip, see if I can see any liquid metal, and I really can't, because it's so far from the edge of the board, I can't see anything on this side of the chip. I was going to show you that, if you can see, there's that last, if I can get that to focus, that last test point right there. I'm in resistance mode. If I can get a good contact on it. There we are. That's pretty short. 0.06 ohms. So I think what I will do is remove this SSD controller, and let's see if that short goes away. Alright, well, I did find a hopefully good SSD controller in my part stash here, and looks like I've already reballed it. And this is going to be one that I pulled off a board or swapped out trying to solve a certain problem, and it didn't solve it, so I think it's still good. I've already reballed it, so she's ready to go. And I'm going to use a preheater. You don't have to use a preheater to change out that chip. it feels better to me to use the preheater and be able to use less heat in this area by using that. So that's why I do it that way. But you could do it without it. You'll just take a little more heat from your hot air station. So I'm going to warm this board up. We'll get this swapped out. I'm going to remove it first. We're going to see if that short goes away. So let's get going. Alright, our SSD controller has been removed, and that short is gone now on that pin, but I'm pretty sure this chip's already been changed out. I want to show you under the microscope here why I think that. If you can see, look up in this corner, significant amount of the solder mask is missing. It's been rubbed away. I don't think I did that. Over here as well. And this is the corner where that short was located on that pin. So I think somebody changed out the SSD controller, but they damaged the solder mask while doing it. And when you do that, you end up with solder balls going places they shouldn't go. So I'm gonna have to sit here for a while. I was just going to quickly swap out the chip and test it, but after I see this damage, I'm going to have to sit here and repair this solder mask for a while. So yeah, that's my next step, is repair that, and then I'll put another chip on. Well, our SSD controller has been replaced, hopefully with a good one. I'm not 100% sure on that one. I did notice, if I can get this to focus, where we had that short right up here on this contact. If you follow that up onto the chip, to either side of that pad is ground. So it'd be real easy for a ball to wander around and give a short, and I think that's what happened. So this board, I think, is cooled off enough. I've got my wires connected. I'd like to see this go to about 320 milliamps, please. Yes. 310. I'll take 310. That looked normal. Is this thing going to work? I think it's going to work. Let's see. I've already cleaned up. I cleaned up while the board was hot on that heater. I cleaned up the flux around this area. Have not really straightened this chip out any, but whatever. I'm kind of excited to see if it'll work. But I did clean up a lot of the flux that was laying around the board. Okay, let me get this tape off here, and we will give this thing a try. It looked like I left some flux under there. Let me clean that up, and then we'll get out in the garage and we'll give this thing a try. All right, here we are back out in the wonderful garage, ready to see if this thing works. I have not bothered to clean the fan yet, as you can see. It should work. Based upon that initialization current, she should work. Oh, beep on, beep off. Beep on, beep off. Is that SSD controller bad? Or is this what the initial problem was? That's what I'm wondering now. Was this initially a beep on, beep off, and then they started working on it and caused the short up under the SSD controller? I'm wondering now. All right, well, this console seems to be going downhill. You saw it turn on earlier. The fan spun, we have lights for a while. Now, I don't get a light. I don't get any fan spin. And earlier I saw the RAM voltages were trying to come up, and now it's nothing. It's back to doing just a beep and nothing else. Which kind of points to a possible south bridge problem. Or a short somewhere that I haven't found yet. But it's strange how intermittent it is. It wasn't, if it's a short, it wasn't shorted just a moment ago when it turned on. So this is going to be a weird one. And finding this intermittent is going to be a problem. All right, here we are back inside the workbench. Checking our current draw again. Let me show you. Yeah, we're back to drawing 230 milliamps. So we're right back where we were. So what gives? That still kind of indicates a problem with the SSD controller or the surrounding storage chips. So what I'm wondering now is, you have a problem with a connection underneath one of these chips. And I heated the area up. Is that why it worked for a little while? I don't know. But it's very strange how it's become intermittent like this. We're right back to drawing 230 milliamps, so she's not initializing like she should. Well, while looking around the board, I've made a discovery I wanted to share with you. Not necessarily a good discovery. This point right here, we have a rather dead short, 0.3 of an ohm, and that goes right under the APU. And I've got another board here I can show you what it should be. This is a known good working board. Same points, about 2K ohms, I want to say. Yeah. So, are we fortunate enough to have a shorted IC right here or a capacitor? I don't know if we're that lucky. But, yeah, about 0.3 of an ohm. And that via right there goes through to right here and then appears right here on a healthy trace going under the APU right there. So yeah, I mean, I can inject some voltage there. I'm not sure what it should be there, but I think 1 volt would probably be safe enough, and see what gets hot. I just have a feeling what it's going to be. But if that's the case, still not sure why that would cause it not to try to turn on, though, because that's, I don't think the APU would really be involved in that, but what do I know? I would think for the initial startup, as long as the south bridge and the SSD were working, that it would try to turn on and then maybe do something else, which is kind of what it did out there in the garage. It turned on and shut back off, didn't it? Which kind of all points to multiple problems. That's what that points to. All right, let me get set up. Let's just see what where that short is. All right, well, I've upped my current to 2 amps. And the only thing getting warm slightly is that APU. This is the back of the board where all the capacitors are on the APU right here. And it is slightly warming up. That is 0.4 volts, 2 amps of current. So I'm afraid it is the end of the line for this processor. Very sad. If I can raise this on up to 2.5 amps. Yep, 2.5 amps. That's 0.6 of a volt. She's warming up. All right, well, you can see where I was injecting right there on this board. And I put my working EDM10 board in that chassis in the garage that I've got open. And because I was curious what that voltage was on the working board, it was 1.8 volts. So that is a 1.8 volt rail being generated right here by this little IC that goes straight under the APU to this side of it. And we have a dead short there. So I'm afraid it's the end of the line of this one. But, well, they can't all be happy endings, I'm afraid. Well, I hope it was somewhat interesting, educational, entertaining, or any of that. If it was, please give me a thumbs up. And I will see you in the very next repair. So long for now.